Hello, my name's John, and I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I hope you do as well. And I've got lots of wonderful stories to tell you. I've actually produced a website with all these stories on, www.biblestorycards.co.uk. You can see all my stories. I'm also a bit of a painter, and so I paint pictures to help me tell my stories. I hope you enjoy them. Hello everyone, this is John again with another one of my wonderful Bible stories. Do you know they're the most exciting stories in the whole of the world, I think? And some of them really leave your nerves on edge because you wonder what's going to happen. Well, this is one such story, and it's about a man called Daniel. Now, Daniel was a Christian man. Well, you could say a Christian. He was a God-fearer. This was long before Jesus came, of course. And Daniel was a prince in the palace in Jerusalem. But unfortunately, the king of the land was a wicked man. And God had to bring some judgment upon that man by having him captured by the king of Babylon, the emperor of Babylon. We've come across him before because you may remember his name was Nebuchadnezzar. Well, Nebuchadnezzar eventually was succeeded by another man of the Medo-Persian Empire called Darius. And Darius was as powerful a man as Nebuchadnezzar was. And there was a secret about Darius that you need to pick up on the story. I wonder if you can get it. I'll ask you at the end. Well, I wonder if you are scared of these creatures. I should be, I think, because, you know, they can do you an awful lot of harm. Can a couple of these creatures, can't they? Lions, and these are male lions, and they're fierce, and they're very, very dangerous. Well, in the land of the Medes, when Darius was the king, there was a place which they called the Den of Lions. They had lions in there who they hardly gave any food to. So they were very hungry, and they were very fierce. And they were kept in this pit in the ground. And of course, the king had them there just so that he could threaten people with throwing them to the den of lions if they were not obedient to what he had to say. Well, I want to tell you something about Daniel, something more about Daniel. You see, when Daniel was a young man, he used to pray a lot. And he had three friends, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. You've probably heard of them. And they used to pray together. There was one occasion where the king had a dream. But for the life of me, he couldn't remember what the dream was about. So he called all his wise men and he said, tell me what the dream is about. And they said, well, you tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. Ah, he said, I see. You're playing for time. It's because you don't know the answer to my request. Well, if you don't tell me the dream, you will suffer for it. Well, they said, no one can tell you that. None of your wise men. And then Daniel heard that all the wise men were going to be killed if they didn't tell Nebuchadnezzar the dream. So Daniel said to his three friends, listen, we are in danger. We've got to pray and we've got to ask God to tell us what the dream was that he gave to Nebuchadnezzar. And they prayed together. And God heard their prayer and answered their prayer. And you know what he did? What God did? He gave Daniel the same dream as Nebuchadnezzar had had. So he went into Nebuchadnezzar and told him what the dream was. So he got such a high position in the land of Babylon. He was second in command. Well, he was very, very wise, was Daniel. And always said the right thing and did the right thing. And all through his life, right from being a young man, he used to pray. And 3 times a day, he would open his windows towards Jerusalem and he would pray to God. That's a good thing to do. I wonder if you pray. Do you pray 3 times a day? You could pray at breakfast time, couldn't you? Just after breakfast. And then you could pray at lunchtime. And then you could pray just before you go to bed. 3 times a day. Well, that's what Daniel did, even when he was an old man. And God used to hear his prayers and answer his prayers. And God gave him some wonderful dreams. Anyway, because he was such a wise man, and because Darius thought so highly of him, he favoured him, and he promoted him in his kingdom. And he gave him the position of the second in command of his kingdom. And Nebuchadnezzar used to make Daniel used to make wise laws for Darius, just as he had done for Nebuchadnezzar. But there were men in the palace who were also in charge, and they hated Daniel, and they wanted to make some trouble for him. They wanted to get him destroyed and get Darius to not favour him anymore. And one of them said to the other, you know, the only way we're going to get Daniel to do something that's wrong is something to do with his God. What does he do with his God? Well, he prays. Right, they said. Let's get Darius to make a law. We'll trick him into making a law. Because, you see, whenever they made a law in Babylon, they called it the law of the Medes and the Persians. Then it couldn't be changed. If the king made the law and he sealed it with his own seal, no chance of changing the law at all. So these unscrupulous evil men, they got together and they said to Darius, "O King Darius, let us make a law to make you into the greatest man in all the world. No one must pray to any other god except you." And I suppose Darius must have thought, well, that's a good idea. I'll be in complete charge then. So they got him to make this law. And he wrote it down. And then they sent out this ruling into the whole of the kingdom. And they knew very well that when Daniel heard that no one must pray to any god except Darius, that Daniel was still going to pray. Because there was, as far as he was concerned, there was only one true God. So, what do you think he did? Well, he went home and he opened the windows and he prayed. And these wicked, unscrupulous men saw him praying. Why, they were waiting for it, of course. That's why. And so they went straight to the king and they said, "Oh, Darius, you know that man that you brought from Israel, that Daniel? Well, he's been found praying to his God instead of to you. Now the law of the Medes and the Persians, Darius, is that he should be thrown into the den of lions. And Darius realized that he'd been tricked. He loved Daniel so much, and he didn't want Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den. But he'd made this law, and he'd signed it, and now it couldn't be altered. Do you know, he spent the whole day trying to find out from his papers and and all his documents if there was some way he could get Daniel rescued from the den of lions. But he tried all day long, from morning till night, and there was no way the law could be altered. So he went to Daniel and he said, "Oh, Daniel, I'm so ashamed of myself. I've made this law, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to throw you into the den of lions. I don't want to do it, but I have to. But listen, you believe in God, don't you? And you worship him and pray to him. Well, can you pray that your God will deliver you from the lions and rescue you? I don't know what else to do." There was nothing else that he could do. So eventually Daniel was taken and he was thrown headfirst into the den of lions. These lions were growling and pacing around. They were hungry because they hadn't been fed for ages. Daniel fell down into the bottom of the lion's pit. But an amazing thing happened. There he was, surrounded by lions, fierce, hungry lions, and not one of them touched him. Well, that's probably not true. They probably came up and licked his hand. But they didn't bite him. They didn't attack him. It's almost as if somebody was keeping hold of them. Well, that's exactly what was happening. Because God had seen that Daniel was a righteous man and a true man and a faithful man. And he hadn't done anything wrong. So God rescued him from the lions. God can control the lions or anything. He can control. Do you remember when Jesus was here? He walked on the sea. And he controlled the sea by calming it down with just a word. Be still. He can do anything in his creation. Well, Darius went to bed. Do you think he could sleep? I tell you, Daniel was asleep. There was a lovely furry coat to lie on from one of these lions who weren't going to touch him. Daniel slept soundly all night long. But Darius couldn't sleep. Why, his servant said to him, "Would you like us to bring some music for you to sing, for you to listen to?" "No," he said, "I don't want any music. I don't want any music. I've got my mind full of trouble. I'm so worried about Daniel. I'm frightened that he'll be torn to shreds and eaten up by these lions." The next morning, almost as soon as it was light, Darius came to Daniel's den. And he knelt down at the rim of the den and he cried out, "Oh, Daniel, are you still alive? Has your God been able to deliver you from the lions?" "Yes," said Daniel, "he has, because I am innocent in his sight. And the wrong has been done to me and to you. So God has protected me from the lions. Darius was furious. He was really angry with those men that had trapped Daniel into praying and then trapped him, Darius, into throwing him into the lions. But God had protected him and preserved him. And so he commanded that these people who had done this to Daniel should be taken and thrown straight away into the den of lions. And you know what happened to them, don't you? When they went down into the den of lions, the lions were there waiting for them. Hungry lions. And they were never seen again. Even before they got to the bottom of the pit, the lions had destroyed them. And then Daniel was taken out of the lion's den by Darius. And Darius said to him, "From now on, you are going to be second in command in the land to me. And all the decisions that are made, that I make, I'm going to make because of you and because of your wisdom and your advice. And what's more, I'm going to make out a decree, another law, to all the nation." And this is what it said. I've kind of done it sideways, but do you see what he said? He said the same kind of thing, you know, that Nebuchadnezzar said when his brain had gone all wonky and he became like a cow. Do you remember, in the field and ate grass, and his nails grew long? Well, when that happened to Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar said, God can do anything in the world. He's able to humble those that are proud. He rules in heaven and on earth. Well, look what Darius said. To all peoples, fear Daniel's God. His kingdom is forever ever. He works wonders in heaven and on earth. Do you know what I think? I think Darius learned the same lesson that Nebuchadnezzar learned. To humble himself in the sight of God and to become a worshipper and a follower of God. In the Bible it says, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, and in due time he will lift you up. Jesus said, God gives grace to the humble, but resists the one who is proud. Now let me ask you this question. Have you humbled yourself before God, the Almighty God, the ruler of the universe, the ruler of lions, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who sent him here so that you might be forgiven and you might know God for yourself? That's a good question to answer, isn't it? I hope you have the right answer.